Hello and welcome to Convin Conversations. I'm your host Ashish, CEO of Convin, a conversation intelligence platform for contact center setups. In today's episode of Convin Conversations, we have Thomas Siebert with us. Thomas is Director of National Sales at Finish Master, is also a customer care CX executive with expertise in deep operations and strategy building in contact centers and BPOs. Welcome to Convin Conversations, Thomas. Thomas, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Ashish. It's a pleasure being here.
Likewise. Thomas, I always like to ask my guests these questions before we start to set the tone right. Although I have introduced you in brief, but it would be great to hear from you about your journey. How did you start off and what is that you're working on right now currently? Love to know that.
Well, I started, believe it or not, back in the late 1970s, helping a small $2 million travel agency do a turnaround. So I got travel in my blood. And then I progressed to the largest of call center programs, being with Expedia. That
Mhm.
included both the leisure and corporate travel, which is a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. We use a lot of technology. It averaged about 25 to 30,000 calls a day and about 1,500 agents. That's probably my most enjoyable role. Currently, with Finish Master, we're working on a three phased approach to customers. One is inbound sales, outbound sales, and then the third area is research. So it's really utilizing contact centers to help become a partner to the business.
That's very interesting. So, starting from a very small travel agency to the journey to Expedia, that might have been fun, right?
Yes, it took a lot of years, a lot of learning, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it's amazing what teams can do, what technology can do, all in trying to really help us to understand what the needs are of our customer today as well as in the future.
And this complete shift from the whole travel industry to motor manufacturing industry at Finish Master, right? How did this happen?
Well, some could say by accident, others might think it's by design, but I think it's really important to consider different industries and different sizes of industries to be able to put to test if your skills apply and your experience can work in many different industries with different teams at different times. So I could have stayed only in travel, but it's a lot of fun to learn if you can take your skills and experience and operate outside of travel successfully.
That's interesting. No, that's really interesting to hear. And then from there, right? You have been in the call center, contact center industry for over a decade now, right? The way companies used to approach CX back then has evolved a lot over the years, right? How has been this transition in your experience, Thomas?
Well, from a transition point of view, some I think has gone well, others has gone poorly, and clearly there's a tremendous amount of work to be done. In some contact centers, CX or customer experience, companies are focusing heavily on the customer. In other cases, companies are focused very heavily on the agent. Handling the phone or the social media or the email or the chat. And in other cases, companies are not focused on either. And so
Mhm.
the biggest transition from a contact center point of view is really the discussion of, is the customer more important, the agent more important, or what I think is the most important, and frankly, that's the balance in
Mhm.
understanding the needs of both the customer and the agent to be able to deliver on the customer needs.
That's fair. That's fair. But if I elaborate that point a little bit more, right, wherein I say that, we want to know more about how the transition is being happening in the contact center space. My sense is earlier the contact centers would majorly be servicing the customers on call, right? It's probably the best use of the medium you can say, or the best reachable medium out there. But over the period in time, it has evolved to multi-channel approach, right? A customer can reach out to you through email, through probably even WhatsApp bots, or probably even through website bots, through social media, through video calls, multiple things, right? So how has the overall experience for contact centers have evolved, right, in terms of how they were managing in call versus how they're managing the multi-channel approach now?
Ashish, that is a great question, and I could probably speak on it for hours. But to try to put it into a nutshell,
Mm-hmm.
That evolution has been a very challenged evolution as we
Mm-hmm.
went from almost 100% on the phone in a
Mm-hmm.
very analog environment, but very responsive to the customer, to a
Yeah.
very digital type of approach. And the more
Mm-hmm.
digital we get, and the more channels we
Mm-hmm.
add layer upon layer of complexity. And that
Mm-hmm.
complexity really requires a much stronger leadership team, operating management team, reporting in real time. And it just requires a lot more tools to manage all those channels and to do it well. Many customers will now come into many channels with the same question. They might call, they'll send an email, they may go on social, and they'll try to chat, trying to figure out which of those channels can get them a faster response and a better response that addresses their challenge. So where we used to only deal with a call, now that same customer can challenge us in two, three, four different channels concurrently. And that really requires brand new technology to help us keep track of all of those different channels and to ensure that we've consistently provided the right solution for the customer's issue at the time.
Makes sense. And my sense is, Thomas, that this would have also led to, changes in processes at the back end, training of different tools, right? That the agents have to learn now, and different kind of mindset probably to serve on different channels, right?
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, so much of the things that you shared, such as training, such as management, is still in the old world of the analog or the call only. And many contact centers have tried to port the old systems to the new architecture, to the new design of the digital channels. And because there are so many channels and the volume is so high, and often the challenge or the customer issue is so complex, those old traditional methods to manage agents and processes don't work very well.
That's interesting. One additional layer of complexity, and this is an extension of the same question that we asked earlier, is that like one additional layer of complexity you can think of is automation that has come into picture, right? Now you would see a layer of automated chatbots trying to handle top of the funnel of queries, and then if they can't handle it, they will connect an agent towards it. Have you seen this as a core technology getting adopted in your experience across different types of contact centers?
I have experienced it more anecdotally and in different environments. It seems like there are a few companies that do it well in a very easy type of environment. And there are many companies that have been doing it very poorly because, again, they're not thinking about the customer coming into their operation in a multi channel environment. And they're not thinking through the end to end process of how to get a customer in and out and handled quickly to the satisfaction of the policy and the procedure. So, for example, in chat, so often today we see companies not willing to escalate customers through a chat session. We see a
Hmm.
lot of the old problems with telephone, with the old analog using a telephone, where on chat agents will now hang up on customers, and customers have to ring back in. There's a lot of those types of issues, as well as one of the biggest challenges is for a customer and an agent to understand when a current channel should not be used, such as a chat, for something that is very complex and that requires, for example, a phone conversation to really understand what the customer issue is and the solutions that may be available to solve those challenges.
Fair point. And we might be going offbeat. Do you see this becoming like the primary de facto mode of conversation with the customers, like a chatbot handling the top of the funnel, or a IVR, like an automated IVR kind of thing? Bot on the phone basically handling the top of the funnel queries, and the manual work or the human intervention only coming into picture once like the queries become complex. Do you see this getting adopted across industry, or do you see problems with this approach in long
There
term?
yeah, it's a great question. There are certain industries that lend themselves very well to a highly automated channel up front to the degree that that channel really understands the context for that customer. So long as for example, the bot understands who the customer is, what their situation is, i.e., context, and can provide the right or the smartest solutions, I can see it happening a lot more often. The challenge is that because so many automated channels have been added, the complexity unfortunately has not been solved for from a management and an operating point of view. So the opportunity for automation to help is certainly there, and especially on the easier type of issues, because most customers prefer often to deal with a bot so long as the bot can handle their issue quickly and quietly, because a bot will do a 24 by 7 by 365 and it will handle it instantly. You don't have to wait for a bot to get something done for 30, 40, 50 minutes for a bot to be available. So the availability of a smart bot that can handle the customer issue and do it well is a very valuable process. The challenge is, of course, when the bot does not respond to what the customer needs, and the customer gets caught in a very negative loop, becomes more irritated, more mad at the company. So when they do call the agent, they spend the first 10 minutes complaining about the bot. And that's what you want to avoid. So great
Yeah.
opportunity when done well.
But do you see this as a future? Like, do you acknowledge that probably this is going to be the future, nevertheless?
Yes, absolutely. So long as we do it well. But I have to add that caveat because so many are done so poorly today. The opportunity to do it and do it well and widespread, it's an incredible opportunity.
If that is an incredible opportunity, my sense is, Thomas, that it also generates another incredible opportunity, which is the agent conversation then becomes even more important, right? Because the customer has, and if a conversation is coming to an agent, that means that the bot has not been able to solve the query, and that's why an agent has to come in, and that's why this conversation is now even more important, because the customer is probably more irritated as compared to the earlier.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely true. And so the conversations the agent will have with the customer will now be more complex in general across the board than what they would have handled in the prior year or years, which means that the role of the agent is even more important because the agent has to know what the answer. First of all, they have to understand what the customer issue is, and they have to understand what the appropriate solution is, and they have to understand what is the most effective way to present that solution or set of solutions to the customer and do it quickly.
Fair point. If you now realize, Thomas, we have talked about the whole contact center approach going multi-channel in future, and then multiple layers of automation being added, which eventually makes it more complex, right? And then the queries and the discussion with the agents and everything becoming more and more complex across multiple channels. My sense is that this is going to give rise to a lot of problems in contact center spaces, right? Do you see any top 3 4 challenges that you can point out that are going to happen or that are already happening now in contact center spaces because of this complexity creeping in, right? Multi-channel approach, automation coming in, all these things, are they giving rise to inefficiencies, any kind of inefficiencies that you think of?
Well, it's presenting a lot of different challenges based upon certain conditions in certain industries, if you will, because so many of the contact center environments today, because they are already focused on just the employee or just the customer experience, they often will over index in certain areas and they may not know to search for certain types of tools and automation that can help them in certain ways. So the biggest issue to me is contact centers not understanding the combination of the customer experience and the agent experience, and then layering in or architecting the right technology to help both the customer explain what they want and the agent to communicate what solutions are available, and then to actually execute that solution and to do it quickly. So to understand a customer issue can take a lot of time and energy, but to be able to figure out what the best solution is absolutely requires automation to help provide and, for example, present to the agent the right policy and the procedure, and then to do some of the robotic automation behind the scenes so the agent doesn't have to work with 3, 4, 5, 6 different systems while they're trying to solve an angry customer's problem. So automation can be that bridge between today and tomorrow's world.
Fair point. With all of this system getting so complex and multiple problems coming in, how do you think contact center people are, or the leaders there are more, how are they managing quality? And like multi-channel approach, a conversation happening at different places, different types of conversation happening. How are they managing quality as of now, in general?
Unfortunately, one certainly gets the understanding that the methodology to handle quality hasn't changed since the predominant analog or call days. That they think that as we handled quality historically, we can do it today and in the future. When the real answer is you need to have higher levels of automation to truly understand what your call types are, or email, or chat, or social media types of questions are, and then
Mm-hmm.
what the correct response is, and then to add a layer of intelligence on so that the solutions that are being presented get better and better as each day, week, and month progresses. So layering automation into the quality process would be considered critical, because you can't operate in a heavily digital world utilizing analog type processes.
That's interesting. And when you say automation is the way to go, right? To help you become more, I mean, better at quality in general, right? What kind of automation are you talking about? If you can highlight some lights, or something that you might be adopting at your companies, or the previous companies that you have worked at. If it would be great if you can bring in those practical examples.
Sure. I mean, a couple of areas on the easier side for me to understand would be things such as IVR integration, where when a customer calls in, they're identified and context is immediately presented to the agent, such as, did I put an order in, and has that order been delivered? Has it been delayed? Have I made a payment, and has the payment been rejected? So understanding a high likelihood of why the customer is calling, and then a presentation of what to do on their screen, combined with robotic process automation behind the scenes that can handle the three, four, five, six different systems that an agent might need to check, such as inventory, such as pricing, such as delivery, those types of things. Basically presented on an agent desktop, so the agent can then articulate that solution back to the customer. And once you have an agent desktop that can identify the context of where the customer is and what they need, it's easier to then automate that solution, because you've brought all the correct pieces together, and you won't need an agent to explain it, because the automation will have understood it and be able to present it on its own.
That's great. Actually a great insight, in fact. And this reminds me the fact that today technology has to adapt people, right? It's not about contact center adopting a new technology. The technology should be flexible enough to say that they can serve the contact centers in the right way, right? In your opinion, how have the intelligent tools affected employee performance, personalization for the customers, and the whole efficiency part of it? That'd be great to know about these three specific things there.
Sure. So a couple things. One is, I think from an employee point of view, it's done, the predominant thing is it's helped to eliminate a lot of the easier customer issues coming in. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the volume has been solved for, which is really important, because again, in the old days, we used to have just the phone, and now with two, three, four, five concurrent digital channels, the same customer complaining across all the channels, that volume can overwhelm an operation and an agent. So the automation can help solve a lot of the frontline issues, just better understanding that it's the same customer with the same issue, and you only need one answer. So helping to solve the easier problems is a clear benefit to the employee. The other benefit to the employee would be on the more complex issues. Automation can help identify what the correct solutions are for that situation, say through accessing a knowledge base. So when a bot listens to a customer call or reads the text in a chat and can go and access a knowledge base, pop up, one or two knowledge base articles with the right policy and the right procedure, that assist mode can be very important. So automation can either handle the customer issue in its entirety, or hand off the customer to an agent and then help to complement the agent's skills by ensuring that the agent knows what to do, which is the policy, and the right way to execute the policy, which is the procedure. Those are two very big benefits to the agent and to the customer.
that's very important. And anything on how they have been able to improve the efficiency? Do you see a drastic change in the efficiency overall for the contact center?
I think the efficiency would come into being able to handle high volume quickly and 24 by 7 by 365. Many just don't appreciate what a huge benefit that is because, to the degree the easier types of issues can be solved digitally, that allows more agents to be available quicker to help customers that have more strenuous type of issues. And that means that a customer, instead of holding on for 30 minutes, might get a agent immediately because the agent is handling 10 easy ones for every difficult. So just access to a well-skilled agent that has the right answer that can solve the customer's issue is huge from an efficiency point of view.
Understood, understood. And now that we have talked about like how the whole system can be improved, the efficiency can be brought in, it's clearly beneficial, right? Adopting technology is clearly beneficial for employees and for the customers both, right? uh, let's imagine a case, Thomas, because I have so much experience and I want people to learn from it. Let's say if you have to start a contact center of your own, and you want to run it and manage it effectively, right? What kind of technology would you adopt first from a contact center leader perspective, right? Like, you can probably break it down into different areas and what kind of technology you want to adopt for each of these areas. That would be great to sort of understand from your point of view.
Sure, and there's many. Part of the challenge would be to figure out which one is first, and assuming we could have many instead of
Yeah.
aligning it, if you will, the many
Yes.
would certainly include the ability to identify the right agent. So agent skilling is really important. The second is from a training point of view, there's a lot of automation we can bring into the training environment that's very important. The
Hmm.
third area would be, for example, the agent desktop, which also goes to training, but to have a fully committed, well thought, well designed agent desktop that takes the customer information, understands the context of where the customer is in their journey, understands the issues, and they can present the agent with the policy and procedure out of the knowledge base would be really important. So the glue to me is clearly things such as an effective agent desktop. Then, on top of that, of course, one of the most important layers on an agent desktop is your quality tool. Because at the end of the day, unless the operations, the contact center understands the rate of quality, they won't understand how well they're helping to address the customer issue. And the more context that the quality tools can understand the conversations and the solutions, the better the operations will know how well they're doing. So instead of just one out of every 40 or 50 or 100 conversations, maybe they measure 100% of the conversations. And that hopefully would allow the contact center team to then really understand how do they improve what they're doing today. So that automation will allow them continual improvement. So their tools get smarter and smarter as the customer issues get more and more complex.
Understood. And this is very fascinating because you spoke about agent skilling and training differently, right? What do you think is the difference there? I would love to understand that difference probably for our audience as well.
One of the keys is many contact centers will try to train an agent in all skills for their first day. So when the agent gets on the phone, they're completely overwhelmed. They're very lowly skilled. They have no practice, and the manager doesn't know how to manage those skills. So some of the more effective contact center environments will identify what type of skills an agent should have. Those skills are based upon call types. So you take the easier call types, convert them to skills, and route those easier calls, if you will, or emails, social media, etc., to an agent so that they can get some practice and they get to get really good. And you build them up a ladder of expertise, of experience. So even though a bot could easily handle it, you have to be able to layer in and build the skills of an agent. You build the skills by understanding what your call types are, identifying ways to then route those contacts to the newer agents. And then over 30, 60, 90 days, they build up the skills and then begin to take the most difficult calls. But in order to do that, you have to understand the quality of every one of those calls so that when an agent takes a left turn, you can help fix it and address their issues and do it quickly and conveniently, so that the next contact the agent gets, they will know the right policy and the procedure to follow through.
That's interesting. And do you see agent training being completely different?
I think that by parsing out agent training based upon skill instead of the universal skill is really important. It takes more work on behalf of the operating team to do that. But at the end of the day, when you take an agent and walk them through the upskilling process over time, you will have better agent retention, you will have better customer outcomes. And by having better agent retention, you get to build the skills within the contact center over time. And it's those skills of the agent that you can then emulate for the AI bots to come in and do what they need to do. So it's really important that before you can build an automated or more digital presence, you generally do it based upon how agents do it and do it well.
That makes sense. That really makes sense. Also, there's one specific part of the whole process that I wanted to talk to you with. I think you've already touched most of the parts, but there's one thing that I would love to know about. When a new agent gets into the system, right, there is generally a ramp up period, and which we obviously call as a training period, right? And this is an industry with high attrition rate. I hope you would agree with that. Like a lot of agents keep on, changing their jobs and everything keeps on happening, right? So if you think about it, probably in a contact center setup, almost the 100% of team will change in the next year, right? And that largely is my understanding. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So then training and faster ramp up becomes very important. And this tells me that agent readiness as a problem becomes very, very important in that area. How do people do this at scale today? Like, are they spending too much money, too much resources doing this, or they have adopted a technology that helps them do this ramp up very fast?
Well, and that's one of the advantages of bringing in the right technology at the right time in the customer journey, because you begin to, as you have already built a certain segment of the agent skilling, and you can then design the right automation to help with certain calls that allows the contact center to better fund, if you will, the agent skilling process and help them to ramp in a more deliberate process. Because by taking a slightly longer route to ramp an agent, the better that agent will be, the more likely they will stay with you. And because of that, you will get the types of customer results that you're looking for. You'll get the financial results for the average handle time for each case. You'll get the right CSAT. You'll get lower DSAT. You'll get higher FCR. So between the financial metrics, the operating metrics, and the customer metrics, by doing the right thing with the agent, by ramping the skilling over a period of time, you get all the benefits you're looking for. But in order to do that at scale, you really need to have a lot of automation. And that's where things like robotic process automation comes in very handy, where the robotic component navigates the many different complex systems in many companies' IT environment. So that is really important, because otherwise you're just bringing in 100, 500, or 1,000 agents only to lose them at 6 months or at 9 months. And that's a huge waste in human talent, when we could have brought in automation to be able to help that agent do their job better. And when they do their job better, the agent gets higher satisfaction and they will stay with you longer.
That's a very fair point, Thomas. Towards the end of the conversation, I think we have already gotten a lot of insight from you, but uh, I have personally seen that there's not a lot of reading material available out there. And understanding how do you learn this about contact center space? If there is a manager who has been recently been promoted, let's say to a manager in a contact center setup, how do they manage their team? How do they run the operation smoothly? So, are there any reading recommendation, Thomas, that you can give to our audience on that?
I think there'd be just a combination of things. So one is what you learn just operating in the environment that you're working in today in the contact center, whether it's from your peers within the contact center, but you also have a lot of opportunity to learn from your other collaboration teams, whether it's IT, the HR team, the finance team, et cetera. Of course, is to reach out to your vendors, and don't think of vendors for example, for automation, whether it's a quality side, knowledge base side, case management side, et cetera. Don't think of them as vendors, think of them as partners. And by thinking about them as partners, you can learn from them. And what you learn from them is how 100 other companies or 500 other companies did certain things. So that's important. And then finally, from a book point of view, I love reading a lot of books, but I read a wide variety. So I happen to be a big proponent of the Apple and the Steve Jobs book. Pretty much every book that's come out, I've enjoyed it. The Elon Musks of the world, I've read several books there because they're thinking about automation and about design and about the customer is really important. I've read just heavily on a few others like Alibaba, just a great story about building the business and how to work with employees as well as customers. Ray Dalio's Principles is a great book. And then, boy, Robert Iger's, I think it was called Ride of a Lifetime with Disney. So these all give you different approaches on how to think of a customer and what's important, but also to think about how to think of a agent, your employee, what's important to them, and the absolute critical requirement to think of a customer journey from end to end and what role the contact center plays and what tools do they need to optimize the process and be the best they can be today and in the future.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for the suggestions, Thomas. This was such an insightful session with so many things out there. My personal favorite being the part where you specifically mentioned that the best way to run a contact center operation is to have a balance between how do you think about your agents and customer and strike that balance and then run it like that rather than only focusing on agents or customer. I thank you again for coming on Conversations with Convin.
Ashish, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity and have a terrific day.
Sure. For everyone else, do like, share, and subscribe to Convin Conversations. I'll see you super soon. Have a good day.